Welcome to the Sort It Out SI League Guide for Portugal, where we'll look at the league structure within Football Manager 2023 and run through a few save ideas if you want to start your career in Portugal. On FM23, Portugal has 4 playable levels and 8 divisions with a total of 116 playable teams. Now, the season in Portugal is a traditional European winter season, so runs from roughly August through to May, and will cover all the levels of the playable pyramid, including European qualification and the domestic cup competitions. Now, we'll start our guide with the top tier, as usual, the Liga Portugal B Win, or the Primeira Liga, which is an 18-team league playing the usual double round-robin schedule for 34 games. Now, in the first season, there are 6 European qualification places on offer in Portugal. The top 5 league places gain qualification along with the winner of the domestic cup, and you can see in game how many go to the Champions League and how many go to the Europa League and the Conference League. But there's usual caveats about the domestic cup winner. If they've already got a better qualification place, then it goes to the 6th place in the league and they all shuffle down a little bit. At the opposite end of the table, there are 2 automatic relegation places, with the 16th place team heading into a 2-legged home and away playoff against a team from the 2nd tier, and we'll cover how that team gets into that space from the 2nd tier in a second. If scores are level after the 2nd leg, which is hosted by the top flight team, then extra time and penalties are played, and the winner goes into the top flight. The loser goes into the 2nd tier. Right, speaking of the 2nd tier, we move on to the 2 Liga, or the Liga Portugal Sabseg. Once again, this league is an 18-team league playing 34 games across the season, and there are 2 automatic promotion places, which you probably would have worked out given what we've just said about the Primeira Liga. The highest finishing eligible teams, with the 3rd highest placed team heading into the aforementioned playoff against the 16th place side from the top division. And I say the highest eligible teams because reserve teams can play in this flight. So the reserve teams of the top flight teams can play in the 2nd tier, but they cannot get promoted, obviously, into the top flight. So it's the same system for relegation here as well. So 2 teams automatically go down, and 16th place heads into a relegation playoff with the same rules as before. So it's 2 legs, home and away. You get the picture. Right, the 3rd tier is Liga 3, which is completely different. It's a completely different structure compared to the leagues above, and this is where Portugal begins to get a little bit complicated. We also see changes after the first season in game as well, so there's a bit of a restructure going on. For the 22-23 season, there are 24 teams, and this reduces down to 20 for the 23-24 campaign. Initially, the teams are split into 2 equal groups of 12 on a geographical basis, so north and south, and each team plays a double round-robin schedule in their own group for a total of 22 games, and then we split off into a promotion and a relegation series. The top 4 in each group move into the promotion series, whilst the remaining 8 teams in each group head into the relegation series, and obviously in the 2nd season that's 6 rather than 8. Now, new groups are then formed in the promotion series, with the 1st and 4th place teams of one group playing with the 2nd and 3rd place teams of the other, and another double round robin schedule is played there, with each group playing a further 6 games. The winners of each group gain automatic promotion, and the 2nd place teams head into a 3rd place playoff. There's no carryover of points at this point from the initial group phase into the promotion series, so group winners are then paired off as well, actually, into a single leg championship final to determine the overall winners of Liga 3. The 3rd place playoff is another home and away 2-leg tie, with the winner advancing to a further playoff with the 16th place team from Liga 2. The groups in the relegation series are formed slightly differently, with the geographical groups from the first phase remaining, but being split further into 4 groups of 4 teams, 5th, 7th, 9th and 11th forming 2 groups, and 6th, 8th, 10th and 12th forming the other 2 groups. To account for performance in that initial phase, 5th place teams start with 8 points in the new relegation series, all the way down to 1 point for 12th place. Again, double round robin schedule happens within each group. Final 6 games played, with the bottom 2 teams from each group being relegated into the 4th tier. So that's quite a few teams going down. The final playable tier then is the Campeonato de Portugal, which sees 56 teams split across 4 equal groups of 14 teams each. The groups play a double round robin schedule, once again, as you are familiar with, for 26 games, with the top 2 teams in each group heading into promotion playoffs, whilst the bottom 6 are automatically relegated into the unplayable district leagues. Now, in the next season, the 23-24 season, to account for the restructure of Liga 3, there's just 5 relegation places rather than 6. The geographical split of the original groups remains, with 4 groups pairing together to form 2 promotion groups of 4 teams each. Another double round-robin schedule for 6 games takes place, with the top 2 teams in each group gaining promotion to Liga 3. The top group winners, the 2 group winners, then face off in a championship final to determine the overall winners. So, as we've said, due to that restructure, there's then a slight change going forward in the 23-24 season. Now we're going to shift focus onto the domestic cup competitions, of which there are 2 in Portugal, the Taça de Portugal and the Taça de Liga. Now, the first one, the Taça de Portugal, is the National Cup, and all first-team sides from the top 4 playable levels are entered here, along with a sizable representation from the unplayable district leagues and the cup competitions therein. Liga 3 and Campeonato de Portugal sides all enter in the first round, with Liga 2 sides entering in round 2, and Primeira Liga sides entering in the third round. All ties, apart from the semi-finals, are just single matches with extra time and penalties if needed. And when the Liga 2 sides enter, they're automatically drawn as the away sides for round 2. And again, for round 3, all the Primeira Liga sides are away teams in their draws as well. Semi-finals are 2-legged before reverting back to a single game, with the winner of the final gaining Europa League qualification, unless they did so already via the league, and then it passes to the Primeira Liga and shifts down, as you would expect. Now, the final cup competition is the Taça de Liga, or the Allianz Cup, which is for the non-reserve teams once again from both the Primeira Liga and the Liga 2, meaning that 34 teams take part in the first season. The teams are drawn into 8 groups, 6 with 4 teams, 2 with 5, for a single round-robin schedule of either 3 or 4 games. Simply, the group winners advance to the knockout rounds, which there are basically a straight single game, single elimination tournament. Winners are crowned, but there's no European qualification place as a reward. This format's in place due to the World Cup in the first season, so that from the second season onwards, there's a different format in place, with all teams except the top 6 of the previous season's Primeira Liga being drawn in ties for the first round. Then the 14 winners plus 2 of the remaining 6 teams head into the second round, where the 8 winners plus the 4 final Primeira Liga teams are drawn into 4 groups of 3 for the third round, and they're single round-robin groups again with just 2 games, and then the 4 group winners going to the semi-finals, and then the final, and once again, no qualification place for Europe as a reward for the Taça de Liga. Right, on the surface, Portugal looks quite simple. If you just look at the top 2 tiers, pretty straightforward. But the further down you go, the more complicated things get, especially with restructures going on. It's all covered now, though, so we're going to have a look at 5 fantastic save ideas for you across multiple levels of Portuguese football. As is tradition, we start with the reigning champions at the start of FM23, and that is FC Porto. But a lot of what I'm going to say about FC Porto can apply to the other 2 teams in Portugal's Big 3, that's Benfica and Sporting Lisbon. Now, across the 89 seasons of top-flight football in Portugal, these 3 sides have won a combined 87 titles. So that's just 2 that they haven't won. We'll cover the 2 teams that have won 1 title later, but that includes the 22-23 season, which Benfica won, take them to 38 titles. Porto have 30, and Sporting a mere 19. All 3 sides have the most money and best facilities in the country, and they all have their own fair share of impressive youth talent among their ranks for you to get your hands on straight away. Out of the 3 teams, though, it's Porto with the most European success, with 2 victories in the UEFA Cup/Europa League and 2 Champions League or European Cup titles, with the last coming under Jose Mourinho in 2004. So that's your challenge if you are to take over Porto or Benfica or Sporting. Take whichever side you choose to European glory and start dominating in Portugal. Now, our next side, staying in the top flight, is Boa Vista, one of the only other 2 teams to have won the Primeira Liga, doing so back in 2001, quite recently in all respects. Now, this side from Porto was formed in 1903 by British entrepreneurs and are one of the oldest teams in the country. Now, after a rocky start in the top flight, Boa Vista solidified themselves as one of the top teams in the country before a run towards the end of the 90s culminated in an incredible rise to become Portuguese champions. Now, that title success was built on an incredible home record and a great defence, and a Unfortunately, though, a match-fixing scandal followed a few years later, and the side were relegated in 2008, so they didn't get a chance to live on that success for very long. Again, a season later, they went relegated once more, but they fought their way back up to the top flight for 2014, and they've been ever present in the mid-table ever since. So you'll have a challenging financial situation to overcome, but the challenge will be to claim a second Portuguese title for Boa Vista and see if you can go even further and get some European success. Now, there are two autonomous regions of Portugal, the Azores and the island of Madeira. Now, both have a top flight team in Santa Clara and Maritimo, but my recommendation to try and bring a first Portuguese title to the islands is the second tier Nacional side from Madeira. You may know the club as one of the youth teams of a certain Cristiano Ronaldo, and Nacional may be outside the top flight currently, but they do have a long history in the Primeira Liga with 2 fourth place finishes in the last 20 years. They have been a bit of a yo-yo club in recent years, so you'll first need to secure promotion and then secure your footing in the top flight before mounting a challenge to bring the first national title to Madeira. We're going to drop down to Liga 3 now for Vitória de Setúbal, a side that is one of the most decorated clubs in Portugal outside of the big three, with 3 Taça de Portugal victories, as well as a Taça de Liga back in 2008. They were one of the founding members of the Primeira Liga and were mainstays until a yo-yo period during the 80s and 90s, before a prolonged stint in the top flight from 2004 all the way to 2020. So pretty recent they were a top flight side. But at this point, it was discovered that they hadn't got a license to continue in the Primeira Liga. They basically failed to continue with their license, and they were relegated administratively all the way down to the then third tier Campeonato de Portugal. The club is in a bit of a mess financially, but on the field they did manage to secure their place in the new third tier by qualifying for the Liga 3, and that league was created by winning their Campeonato group. It's a long road back to the Primeira Liga, but your challenge will be to add more honours to an already pretty decently sized trophy cabinet and take a first league title as well. And speaking of the Primeira Liga title, our final club is the only other winner of the league, Belenenses, which I've definitely pronounced awfully, who find themselves back in Liga 3, but their journey to that point was a unique one. Belenenses, again, pronounced awfully, were the first team outside of the big three to win the league back in 1946. And they've also got 6 Taça de Portugal victories to their name. They were one of just 4 teams to have never been relegated from the top flight until they suffered that fate in 1982, and after yo-yoing between the second tier and European football, so quite big swings in pretty short amounts of time during those intervening years, it was 2018 that saw the club fracture in 2. Now, a public company was set up to run the first team, the SAD, and they broke away from the original club during a period of very poor financial health. BSAD, as the team was then going to be called as they split away, kept the team's place in the Primeira Liga, but the original Belenenses side dropped out of the leagues all the way down into the district amateur leagues for the 2018-19 season. So they were all the way down in the 6th tier. BSAD did not fare very well on the pitch, suffering relegation in 2022, but the original club have been on a climb back towards professional football, which they've achieved now, winning both 6th and 5th tiers back-to-back before immediately securing a third promotion out of the Campeonato de Portugal to start the 22-23 season in Liga 3. It's still a long way back to the top, but the aim is to surpass BSAD and get a second Portuguese title for this historic club. So there we have it. That is a whistle-stop tour of the playable Portuguese leagues, on Football Manager, along with 5 great save ideas. If you're familiar with either real-life Portuguese football or you've managed there extensively on Football Manager, please head to the comments and share your thoughts, any corrections and pronunciation mishaps, and importantly, any stories of managing in Portugal. Once again, share them down there. While you're there, remember to like the video, subscribe to the Sort It Out SI channel if you haven't already, and check out some more league guides. We've got about 15 here on the channel. This will be number 16, I think. And other great content as well as we move towards FM24. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.